In recent episodes of History Traveler, we explored significant sites related to the Battle of the Little Bighorn, starting at Custer's last encampment, where we examined his critical decision to divide his forces. Our second episode took us to the site of Reno's disastrous charge, a key moment that shaped the battle's outcome. This episode follows Lieutenant Colonel Reno's retreat across the Little Bighorn River to Reno-Benteen Hill, a crucial defensive position for elements of the 7th Cavalry. Joined by Jocko Willink, Leif Babin, and members of Echelon Front, we'll discuss the strategic decisions made during this defense against overwhelming Native American forces led by Sitting Bull. From our vantage point overlooking Reno Creek, we reflect on a pivotal moment when Benteen received a critical message about Custer, and Reno, faced with the dilemma of rushing to assist or waiting for crucial supplies. Benteen's decision would have lasting consequences for the battle. As the troops advanced down Reno Creek, they encountered the chaos of battle. Benteen positioned his men on the high ground above the river, where they found temporary refuge and a strategic advantage. Standing on Reno Hill, one can feel the weight of the decisions made here, the desperation of the men seeking safety, and the courage required to continue the fight. At the ridge's top, the landscape reveals the events surrounding Reno's charge and retreat. Facing west, we see the red building where Reno made the critical decision to dismount. Overwhelmed by opposition, the troops faced disarray and retreat, moving desperately across the river under fierce assault from Crazy Horse's warriors. By around 4 p.m. on June 25th, Reno and the remnants of his command reached the hill, exhausted and desperate after a chaotic crossing. This historic location illustrates the grim realities of warfare and the struggles faced by those involved in this pivotal battle. History bears witness to the courage and determination of those soldiers as they faced overwhelming odds. Reno's forces had suffered significant losses, with approximately 40 men killed and many more wounded. Several others remained in hiding down in the valley, desperately trying to avoid the onslaught. Throughout this turmoil, a haunting question lingered in the air. Where was Custer? Unfortunately, that answer would not come for some time, leaving everyone anxious about the fate of their commanding officer. Meanwhile, the fighting remained intense at Reno-Benteen Hill, where the situation was still precarious. If you look in this direction, you can see the path Reno's men would have taken as they made their ascent around 4 o'clock in the afternoon on June 25th. It was here that they ultimately converged with Benteen's element, a critical moment for their survival. A monument stands in this area, marking it as a point of occupation for troops A, B, D, G, H, K, and M of the 7th U.S. Cavalry. This space is now a solemn reminder of the bravery and determination exhibited by these soldiers amidst overwhelming odds. The convergence of their forces here on the heights became a pivotal moment in the battle, a place where they fortified their position and prepared to face the continuing threats that loomed around them. The events of June 25th and 26th, 1876, tell a harrowing tale of survival amidst the chaos of battle, particularly for the cavalry and the pack train besieged by Sioux Indians. When we think of Custer and his last stand, our minds often focus on the tragic fate of Custer and his men to the north. However, it's crucial to recognize that significant fighting and a desperate stand also took place here on the southern end of the battlefield, at the Reno-Benteen defense. Standing atop Reno-Benteen Hill, we can appreciate the strategic positioning of the forces as they attempted to withstand the onslaught. Here, a well-constructed map provides us with essential orientation, clearly indicating our location in relation to the defense perimeter. This perimeter, however, is not a flawless circle or oval. Rather, it reflects the chaotic nature of battle, adapting to the landscape and the movement of the troops involved. Understanding this layout helps to visualize the defensive efforts made by the soldiers under Reno and Benteen as they fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. Their tenacity in this region illustrates another facet of the larger conflict, showcasing the resolve and bravery of those who were determined to hold their ground despite the grim circumstances surrounding them. As we explore this area, it becomes evident that every inch of terrain played a crucial role in the battle, influencing both strategy and survival in this tragic chapter of American history. As we stand atop Reno-Benteen Hill, the defensive perimeter reveals itself in a shape reminiscent of a frying pan, illustrating the desperate measures taken by the soldiers during the battle. Company B is positioned over here, while Company M will also occupy this area on the second day of fighting. Moving over to what resembles the handle of the frying pan, we can locate Company H's sector, strategically placed to provide critical support and cover. In the middle of this perimeter, a barricade was established, creating a fortified area where horses and mules were sheltered amid the chaos. This zone would also serve as a field hospital, emphasizing the urgent need for medical care in the face of mounting casualties. The placement of these resources speaks to the priorities of the commanding officers, balancing the need for defensive strength with the imperative of caring for the wounded. As we look down the draw leading to the Little Bighorn, which we discussed in our previous episode, it's an opportune moment to reflect on the importance of setting priorities in the midst of crisis. For these soldiers, decisions had to be made rapidly, weighing the immediate need for survival against the longer-term goals of regrouping and seeking reinforcements. Their choices in these critical moments would determine not only their own fates, but also the outcomes of the broader battle, a reminder of the weight that such decisions carry in the heat of conflict. The Native Americans, led by Crazy Horse, had successfully pushed Reno's men out of the area, achieving their primary objective, protecting their village. With around 600 of the 2,000 warriors actively engaged against the 7th Cavalry, they operated with remarkable cohesion despite the independent actions of many warriors. This unity of purpose was crucial in the face of overwhelming odds. Once the threat from the south was neutralized, the focus shifted among the native warriors. Their victory over Reno's forces instilled a renewed sense of confidence and purpose. However, they were not simply resting on their laurels. Many warriors began to reposition themselves strategically, ready to confront the next wave of Union troops that might attempt to come to Reno's aid, or more importantly, to engage Custer's command. As Reno's men ascended the draw toward the high ground, they were not only fleeing the chaos of the river valley, but also trying to regroup in the hope of making a stand against the relentless assaults. The native warriors, feeling emboldened by their initial success, coordinated their movements to anticipate the next actions of the U.S. cavalry. With the terrain working to their advantage, the Native Americans moved swiftly and stealthily, taking advantage of the element of surprise that had already played a critical role in their earlier engagements. As the sun began to set over the plains, both sides prepared for what was anticipated to be an even fiercer confrontation. The stakes were high, and the resolve of the warriors was unyielding, as they stood ready to protect their families and their future against the oncoming tide of the 7th Cavalry. As the Native Americans moved out, they did so with a singular purpose, a unity of intent that was both impressive and strategic. They formed a cohesive front, shifting together like a well-drilled unit, ready to confront the new threat emerging from the north. Their collective aim was clear: to protect their village and their people at all costs. This shared goal galvanized them, allowing them to act with a sense of urgency and determination that contrasted sharply with the disarray within the ranks of the 7th Cavalry. In stark contrast, the soldiers of the 7th Cavalry found themselves in a state of fragmentation. Each officer and soldier seemed to be operating under a different set of priorities and motivations. Custer's focus was primarily on his own glory. His ambition to achieve a decisive victory was palpable, and he was eager to make a name for himself in the annals of military history. This drive, however, clouded his judgment, leading him to divide his forces at a critical juncture. Benteen, on the other hand, was caught in a fog of confusion. His own priorities appeared unclear, and he harbored lingering resentment toward Custer, questioning the decisions that had led them into such a precarious situation. As he maneuvered his troops, he seemed less focused on a coordinated effort to support his fellow officers, and more consumed by his own thoughts and grudges. When Reno finally made it to the top of Reno-Benteen Hill, one might have expected him to quickly establish a defensive perimeter, rally his men, and look for a way to link up with Custer's command. Instead, his actions revealed a mix of uncertainty and hesitation. Faced with the chaos of the battle and the palpable fear that came from being heavily outnumbered, his thoughts appeared scattered. Rather than forming a cohesive plan to regroup with Custer or prepare for the inevitable assaults from the native forces, Reno seemed more preoccupied with the immediate threat at hand and the survival of his remaining troops. The lack of unified direction among the 7th Cavalry was exacerbated by fierce resistance from Native American warriors. While the cavalry struggled with internal conflicts, the native forces moved with clarity and purpose to defend their way of life. This difference in resolve, leadership, and objective significantly influenced the unfolding battle. Reno's decision to search for his aide, Lieutenant Hodgson, by descending toward the river, highlighted a critical miscalculation. Instead of establishing a defensive position, he prioritized locating his fallen comrade, costing precious time that could have strengthened their defenses. This choice reflects a lack of awareness of the larger threat. Now at the echelon front, EF battlefield, we gain insights from leaders like Jocko Willink, whose teachings on leadership and decision-making under pressure emphasize prioritization and clarity. The historical significance of this site allows us to draw parallels between past military decisions and contemporary leadership challenges. From our vantage point, the landscape appears more open than from Two-Bar Hill. If we plan to move, note that I've been on horseback since 9 a.m. at Crow's Nest. Picture doing 100 burpees to get our blood pumping, then sprinting to higher ground before heading toward the Wolf Mountains. It's a demanding plan, but prepares us for upcoming challenges. As we stand at the heart of the Benteen-Reno defense perimeter, the walkway traces the boundaries established by the 7th Cavalry during the tumultuous days of June 25th and 26th. In the center of this space, you can see a small stake adorned with a red cross. This marks the location where the only surviving assistant surgeon, Henry Porter, set up his makeshift aid station. Here, he worked tirelessly to gather the wounded and provide them with whatever medical care he could muster amid the chaos. Looking around, it's evident that this location is quite open, which would have posed challenges for the soldiers during the battle. The visibility offered by the terrain meant that they were susceptible to attacks from all sides. This openness highlights the perilous position they were in as they tried to defend against overwhelming odds while tending to the injured. The landscape itself tells a story, one of valor, desperation, and the harsh realities faced by those caught in the midst of conflict. The strategic decisions made here would have significant consequences for the men of the 7th Cavalry, shaping the course of the battle and their fates as they fought for survival. The terrain here is stark, with hardly any trees in sight, leaving us exposed under the relentless sun. I can feel the heat radiating against the back of my neck, a reminder of just how inhospitable this environment can be. The absence of shade, not only presents challenges for us, but also creates a dire situation for the wounded soldiers, who lay exposed to the scorching rays. As we begin to walk through the perimeter defenses, it's important to reflect on a significant event that unfolded prior to the intense fighting on the evenings of June 25th and 26th. On the afternoon of the 25th, various companies were assembling and fortifying their positions here, each trying to establish a stronghold against the mounting threat. Among them was the commander of D Company, a man named Weir. As he took his place among the ranks, he became acutely aware of the sounds of gunfire echoing in the distance. The noise, a harbinger of the chaos to come, hinted at the violent confrontation brewing nearby. As the situation grew increasingly tense, the whereabouts of Custer remained a mystery. Weir spotted a high point to the north and decided it might provide some insight into the unfolding chaos. He approached Reno, requesting permission to take his company out for a reconnaissance mission, hoping to ascertain Custer's location and gauge the enemy's movements. However, Reno, overwhelmed by panic and his own inebriation, flatly refused. Undeterred by Reno's refusal, Weir made the bold decision to proceed without authorization. With determination, he led his company into the fray, a move that would ultimately shift the dynamics of their precarious situation. Observing Weir's departure, Benteen assumed that permission had indeed been granted, and decided to follow suit, leading his own men in pursuit of Weir. Their destination was a prominent overlook that has since come to be known as Weir Point, a crucial vantage point on the Little Bighorn battlefield. Here, they hoped to gain a clearer understanding of the battlefield layout and locate Custer's command. After this crucial reconnaissance, we'll return to assess the defensive perimeter established by Reno and Benteen on the heights, gaining further insights into the strategies and decisions that defined this critical moment in history. Reflecting on the chaos of the battlefield, I couldn't help but consider the limitations of communication during those times. Imagine being out there, surrounded by uncertainty, without radios or any means to relay information. The sense of isolation would be overwhelming. You'd have no way of knowing where your comrades were, or how the situation was unfolding. It's a daunting thought. In contrast, my experience in modern operations, albeit decades later, was significantly different. I remember my last combat deployment in 2006. We had radios, and every soldier carried one. Yet despite having this technology at our disposal, we often executed operations without the need to communicate over the radio. It's a testament to the effectiveness of decentralized command. Decentralized command empowers each leader within a unit to make decisions independently, based on their situational awareness and understanding of the mission objectives. For example, during our operations, Leaf might lead one aspect of the mission as the assault force commander, while I operated as the ground force commander, and Andrew took on the role of mobility commander. Remarkably, none of us needed to communicate via radio throughout the entire operation. This level of autonomy is a critical element of successful operations. It allows for quick decision-making and adaptability on the battlefield. Each leader is entrusted with the responsibility to act decisively, fostering a cohesive unit that can respond effectively to rapidly changing circumstances. This structure not only enhances operational efficiency, but also builds trust among team members, knowing that everyone is aligned with the mission's objectives and empowered to take action when necessary. The key to our success in those operations was decentralized command. Each team member, Leaf, Andrew, and I, was acutely aware of our individual missions and the boundaries within which we were operating. This clarity allowed us to function effectively without the need for constant communication. Leaf understood his objectives just as Andrew was clear about his role and responsibilities. We had established standard operating procedures and protocols that guided our actions, enabling us to anticipate each other's movements and decisions. This was the essence of decentralized command. In practice, this meant that I could be anywhere I needed to be. If I heard gunfire coming from Leaf's direction, I wouldn't hesitate to move closer, seeking to understand the situation better. Leaf would have a similar mindset. He'd instinctively know to check in with me. But instead of jumping on the radio to relay every detail, he'd navigate back to the breach point to give me a first-hand account. This approach streamlined our operations and fostered a sense of autonomy among the team. Everyone was empowered to act based on their situational awareness, ensuring that we remained coordinated even in the chaos of combat. The ability to communicate directly and efficiently, without relying solely on technology, was crucial to our effectiveness and cohesion as a unit. This brings us to an essential question. Do you trust your team to execute their tasks effectively? And more importantly, does your team trust you? Trust is the backbone of any successful operation. When Leaf is out in the field and faces a decision, does he have the confidence that I'll support him? When Andrew is gearing up to assault a target, does he trust that I've got his six? This trust is vital for effective decision-making in high-pressure situations. If Andrew believes that his course of action aligns with our rules of engagement and the enemy's tactics, he needs to feel assured that he can rely on me to back him up. Trust fosters the kind of decentralized command that allows individuals to act decisively and autonomously, knowing that their leaders and teammates are aligned and ready to support them when it matters most. Now, this doesn't mean that Leif can act recklessly without facing consequences. It's crucial that he understands the importance of making sound choices. He knows that if he acts irresponsibly, there will be repercussions. Just as Jason emphasized earlier, there's a strong desire not to let me down or to disappoint the team. Ultimately, it's not solely about whether you trust your team. It's equally about whether they trust you. Do they know that you have their back? This dynamic fosters a culture where individuals feel empowered to make informed decisions, knowing that they're supported by their leaders and comrades. It's about creating a team where everyone is committed to doing their best, holding each other accountable, while also fostering an atmosphere of trust and support. This balance is vital for achieving our collective objectives and enhancing operational effectiveness. We've shifted our focus slightly northward to the very spot where Captain Thomas Weir ascended, finding himself on a rise that granted him an unparalleled view of the battlefield behind me. This vantage point was crucial. It allowed Weir to perceive the unfolding chaos below in a way that no one else could. Jocko, Leif, and the other members of Echelon Front have consistently emphasized the significance of seizing the high ground, of gaining perspective to make informed decisions during combat. Captain Thomas Weir stood at a vantage point, observing the battlefield with a unique perspective that provided critical insights into troop movements and enemy positions. As he scanned the horizon, he initially mistook figures in the distance for Custer's forces, preparing to ride out to join them. However, his fellow soldier Flanagan intervened, offering him field glasses to reassess the situation. Upon closer inspection, Weir realized those figures were Native American warriors, not allies. This revelation shifted his immediate plans and highlighted the importance of perspective in battle. As Weir confirmed the impending threat of organized assault from the Native Americans, he and Benteen decided to retreat and regroup with Reno at the defense perimeter. However, their failure to communicate this decision left Companies D and M in uncertainty. Captain French of Company M, known for his leadership, faced a critical choice: to remain and risk isolation or to join the retreat. The moment was charged with tension, illustrating the chaos and confusion enveloping the battle. Captain French, recognizing the gravity of the situation, made a critical decision to initiate a retreat. As the troops began to fall back, One soldier, Vincent Charles, a farrier, would not make it past this point. Tragically, he was killed here on June 25, 1876, his sacrifice marked by a solemn memorial. Meanwhile, another company commander, Captain Godfrey of Company K, played a pivotal role in preserving the lives of many of his men. Displaying quick thinking and decisive leadership, Godfrey ordered his soldiers to dismount and organized a defensive formation as they retreated toward Reno and Benteen Hill. His actions provided crucial cover for the retreating units, allowing them to regroup and maintain some semblance of order amidst the chaos. Ahead of us lies the area known as Sharpshooter Ridge. This vantage point became significant during the skirmishes, offering a strategic position for those defending against the advancing Native American forces. As the soldiers made their way toward this ridge, they relied on the leadership of individuals like Godfrey to help them navigate the dire circumstances they faced. Sharpshooter Ridge would become a strategic stronghold for the Native American warriors, significantly complicating the situation for the beleaguered soldiers under Reno and Benteen, who were tasked with holding the defense perimeter throughout the battle. As Weir, Benteen, and their respective companies successfully retreated back to this defensive position, they found themselves increasingly encircled. Native American forces were converging from multiple directions: the north, the west, and even a contingent to the east, effectively surrounding the 7th Cavalrymen. This encirclement intensified the pressure on Reno and Benteen, making it clear that their ordeal was far from over. In the face of this daunting challenge, we will take some time to explore the perimeter of Reno-Benteen Hill, examining the conditions and defenses that the soldiers had to rely on in their desperate fight for survival. The landscape here tells a story of struggle, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of survival amidst overwhelming odds. Currently, we find ourselves on the western slopes, overlooking the valley where the Little Bighorn River meanders below. It's important to note that this area was the scene of Reno's charge, and specifically, it was occupied by Company B during the battle. However, the situation was precarious. Company B was stretched incredibly thin across this rugged terrain. As you scan the landscape, you can see how the ground undulates with various dips, coulees, and ravines. This uneven terrain creates ample opportunities for ambush and surprise attacks, making it easier for an enemy to slip in unnoticed. I've experienced similar conditions while turkey hunting, where a turkey can seemingly vanish from one spot and suddenly reappear hundreds of yards away. In this case, Company B's position was vulnerable. The soldiers were not only tasked with holding their ground against overwhelming odds, but also faced the constant threat posed by the unpredictable landscape that could easily conceal approaching enemies. Their thinly stretched lines would soon be tested in ways they could never have anticipated. Benteen called upon Company M, led by Captain French, to bolster their defenses. By June 26, the second day of the battle, Company M had significantly reinforced this section of the line. Now, as we stand at the southern end of where Companies B and M were positioned during the Battle of Little Bighorn, you can envision the soldiers lined up here, preparing for the intense confrontation ahead. If you look closely, you might spot a section of preserved entrenchments that remain on the southern part of Benteen's line. Conditions were harsh for these men. It was hot and dry, and the ground was hard, making it difficult to dig in. These entrenchments provided some measure of protection, but the soldiers had to contend with the relentless elements as well as the formidable opposition. The intensity of the battle would test their resolve and strategic positioning. As they braced for the fight that lay ahead, digging in was an arduous task, compounded by the limited resources available. The entire command had only about 3 or 4 shovels among them, forcing the soldiers to resort to makeshift tools for their fortifications. They utilized hatchets, knives, and even spoons to carve out whatever shallow cover they could manage. In a desperate bid for protection, they dragged in dead horses and mules, using the carcasses to create barriers, while hardtack boxes served as makeshift shields against incoming fire. Here, you can see some of the preserved trenches. It's important to note that while many of these trenches were reworked in the 1950s, they still offer us a glimpse into the desperate measures these men took to defend themselves. As I've already mentioned, it's sweltering out here right now, which only adds to the difficulties they faced during those intense days of battle. The heat, combined with the chaos of combat, must have been nearly unbearable as they fought for their lives and sought any semblance of security against the enemy's relentless onslaught. I can only imagine that as this video goes on, you'll see my skin getting redder and redder from the relentless sun. Right now, I'm pretty dang thirsty, and it's a stark reminder of what those soldiers endured. The conditions during the battle on June 25th and 26th, 1876, were similarly harsh. Up here, there's absolutely no cover, no shade, and not a cloud in the sky. The sun was beating down mercilessly on these men, who had already been without water for hours. On the 26th, the assistant surgeon managing the field hospital urgently informed Reno and Benteen that the troops had to have water. The wounded soldiers were not only suffering from the heat, but also from blood loss, which only exacerbated their thirst. In a desperate move, they called for volunteers to brave the gauntlet down to the Little Bighorn River to fetch water for the beleaguered men on the hill. It's a striking image, seeing these soldiers so parched, fighting not only the enemy, but also the unforgiving elements. Lieutenant Edward Godfrey vividly described the ordeal, stating that the excitement and heat made their thirst almost maddening. The men were strictly forbidden from using tobacco, so they resorted to placing pebbles in their mouths to stimulate their salivary glands, while others chewed on grass roots in a futile attempt to find some relief. Some even tried to eat hardtack, but after a few moments of chewing, they would spit it out like so much flour, further emphasizing their dire situation. With conditions this severe, several men were tasked with venturing down this ravine to fetch water. To provide some level of protection for these volunteers, they positioned 4 sharpshooters to cover their descent, while 15 brave souls stepped forward to carry the precious water back up the hill. It's a harrowing scene, reflecting the desperation and determination of these soldiers amidst overwhelming adversity. These brave soldiers were equipped with canteens, kettles, and cups, anything they could use to reach the river, fill their containers, and make the arduous trek back up the hill. Throughout this perilous endeavor, they were exposed to enemy fire, yet their courage shone through. As a testament to their bravery, those who participated in this mission were awarded the Medal of Honor, and the site is now known as Medal of Honor Point here at the Little Bighorn battlefield. It's worth noting that the criteria for the Medal of Honor have evolved since the Civil War and the Indian Wars. Back then, it was essentially the only award available, and it was granted for a range of actions that might seem less extraordinary today, such as retrieving ammunition, capturing flags, or fetching water. The standards were different, reflecting the context of the time, and it's interesting to consider how the criteria for valor have changed over the years. Here's a condensed version of the text while maintaining its meaning. Private Mike Madden from K Company exemplified bravery during the water run, for which he was later awarded the Medal of Honor. Despite being the only one wounded in the mission, he sustained a severe gunshot wound to the leg, leading to an amputation, and was rescued by Crow Scout Half Yellowface. Ironically, neither Madden nor Half Yellowface received the Medal of Honor, raising questions about the distribution of such honors. Looking eastward, the ridgeline played a critical role during the battle, with Native American warriors positioned to attack the perimeter. This strategic location presented significant challenges for Reno and Benteen as they defended against a multifaceted assault. You may notice an L-shaped rifle pit restored in 1958, where skeletal remains and military artifacts were discovered, indicating soldiers had been buried there. These remains likely belonged to Privates Julian Jones and Thomas Meter, although they were not killed at that specific site. As we turn back toward the Little Bighorn River, markers indicate where soldiers fell, including one for Thomas Meter and another for Julian Jones. Charles Windolf, a soldier from Company H, provided accounts that helped establish the locations of their deaths. Windolf, the last surviving soldier from the battle, later returned to recall that he suggested to Jones to prepare for action, only to find him dead from a gunshot wound to the heart. If you recall from earlier when I pointed out the map of the defensive perimeter here on the hill, I mentioned that its shape resembled a frying pan. Right now, we find ourselves at the southernmost tip of that frying pan, which marks the end of its handle. As we look around, you might notice another marker commemorating the fallen soldiers. However, this one appears slightly different from the others, hinting at the unique stories and fates of those who fought here. This marker commemorates a fallen Native American warrior, Long Road, from the Sans Arc Sioux tribe. During the night of June 25th into the 26th, several Native Americans advanced closer to the cavalry's position. When the firing resumed the next day, they were close enough to hurl rocks and dirt clods at the soldiers on the line. Around 900 hours, Benteen requested reinforcements from M Company, and they launched a counter-assault down this ravine, successfully driving back several Native American warriors. This decisive action may have been crucial in stabilizing the defense on the southern end of the perimeter. Just moments ago, we reflected on the somber markers honoring the fallen soldiers who sacrificed their lives right here on this very line. Among them was Thomas Meter, whose life was tragically cut short as the defensive line retreated to this position during the chaos of battle. It's a stark reminder of the immense courage and the dire circumstances faced by these men. Now we've shifted our focus back to the heart of the defensive perimeter, a critical area that played a pivotal role during the battle. This is where the field hospital was established, serving as a crucial sanctuary for the wounded amidst the turmoil of combat. The field hospital's location was not just a random choice, it was strategically placed to maximize accessibility for those in desperate need of medical attention, while still being within reach of the front lines. As we stand here, it's important to reflect on Company A's positioning on the eastern side of the perimeter. Faced with overwhelming odds, they defended a landscape of rolling hills and ravines, which offered both concealment and vulnerability. This topography allowed Native American warriors to maneuver effectively while complicating the 7th Cavalry's defense. The commanders had to balance the safety of their men with the need to hold their ground. Company A's actions symbolized the broader struggle. These soldiers were not just defending a position, but fighting for their lives and ideals. Within the perimeter, the camaraderie and resolve of the men were palpable. Each soldier understood the stakes and made quick decisions in a rapidly evolving situation, aware of their vital roles in the battle strategy. We must also acknowledge the human aspect of warfare. The field hospital was bustling with medics, tending to the wounded under harsh conditions, as heat and scarce resources added to the urgency. The sacrifices made here extend beyond those who perished. Many survivors faced long-term physical and psychological injuries. The legacy of this battle is etched in the land and in the hearts of those who fought, forging lifelong bonds among comrades. As we explore further, we honor the bravery and resilience of all soldiers involved. The memory of Thomas Meter and his comrades endures, reminding us of the sacrifices made in the name of duty and honor. Reflecting on these moments deepens our understanding of this complex historical event and its profound impact on those who participated. In examining the landscape and the remnants of the defenses, we gain insight into the harsh realities faced by these men. It's a testament to their strength and an opportunity to honor their memories, ensuring that their sacrifices are never forgotten. As we stand at this intersection of history, let us pay tribute not only to those who fell, but also to the enduring spirit of all those who fought valiantly in the face of adversity. The soldiers, in their desperate struggle for survival, improvised makeshift barriers using whatever materials they could find: dead mules and horses, hardtack boxes, saddles, anything that could provide even a modicum of protection against the oncoming bullets. These desperate measures highlight the resourcefulness and resolve of men facing overwhelming odds. In 1958, during excavations at this site, the remains of a soldier from Company A were discovered, presumably interred here in the heat of battle. The marker reads, U.S. Soldiers 7th Cavalry killed June 25 or 26, 1876. While the exact day of this soldier's death remains uncertain, it is likely that he fell victim to a bullet fired from the direction of the ongoing conflict. This grave serves as a poignant reminder of the individual sacrifices made during those harrowing days of the Battle of Little Bighorn. Each soldier's story, though often lost to time, is crucial to understanding the collective experience of those who fought valiantly under dire circumstances. As the afternoon progressed on June 26, the intensity of the fighting in this area on the hill began to wane. The soldiers who had managed to survive the brutal conflict started to notice plumes of smoke rising from the valley below. The Native Americans, intent on safeguarding their village, had ignited the grass and underbrush, creating a smokescreen to facilitate their withdrawal to the south. This strategic maneuver was not merely a tactical retreat, it was a testament to their primary objective, the protection of their home and community. Amidst the chaos and confusion, the soldiers were left counting heads, trying to ascertain who among them had survived the ordeal. Yet, a shared concern weighed heavily on everyone's mind. Where is Custer? The fate of their commanding officer hung in the air, like the smoke curling up from the valley. Meanwhile, Gibbon and the Montana column were making their way down from the north along the Bighorn River, approaching the Little Bighorn. As they neared this pivotal area, they began to uncover the grim reality of what had transpired with Custer and the 5 companies under his command. Evidence of the fierce battle, remnants of conflict, and the stark aftermath of their struggle painted a harrowing picture of the last stand that had occurred just days prior. Each piece of evidence they found spoke volumes about the ferocity of the fighting and the dire circumstances faced by Custer's battalion. The somber realization of their commander's fate cast a shadow over the surviving soldiers, intertwining their present struggles with the echoes of a recent past filled with loss and uncertainty. The unfolding narrative of the battle continued to evolve, marked by a poignant blend of resilience, sorrow, and the relentless pursuit of survival.